Hi, and welcome back to the second part of The Boy in the Wardrobe. Last time we got introduced to Jaime and his place in El Salvador where he lives. He's about 6 years old and he got news that he has a new daddy. So we're going to learn a little bit more about his living situation and about the new daddy. They did not see Sanchez for a few days. Elspeta did not answer any questions about him, no matter how much Jaime poked and probed about his new daddy. Grandmother frowned every time she heard the name of Sanchez mentioned. When the man finally returned, he stank like a skunk. He was drunk, or high, or both, grabbed Elspeta who had been hanging washing on the line in the yard. She objected, but he simply dragged her after him to her room. The door banged shut. His mother screamed, but there was a slap or two, then nothing, before the groaning and the moans started. Jaime stood in the yard, looking at the closed door, unsure of what to do. "Grandma," he whispered, but the old woman turned away. He followed her to their room and cradled himself into his hammock. He gently swung back and forth, wondering what went on and what he should do. He did not like to hear his mother cry and moan like this. "Go to sleep, mijo," his grandmother quietly whispered to him. "But," he started, not getting his thoughts out, "when you are older, you will understand." But her words were no consolation. In the dark he cried himself to sleep. The next morning his mother had a swollen eye that turned blue and then black before the bruising eventually disappeared a few days later. She did not speak about what had happened. Grandmother shook her head. "Get rid of him. He's not worth it if he does this to you." In response, Elspeta took out a $10 bill and handed it to her. "Take this. This will keep us fed for a while." They exchanged glances above Jaime's head and grandmother hid the money inside her bra. Chewing on a dried-up tortilla from the previous day, he walked out to meet his friends and to do what little boys did. It took a deflated football and a few minutes of laughter, and he had forgotten his mother's face and the name of Sanchez. The pattern was set and continued. Sanchez would disappear for days, then come back, stinking and in a vicious mood. He would grab Elspeta and drag her to her room. Even when she came willingly, he would smack her about, lay on top of her till he had enough. In the morning he would simply leave. Jaime was old enough to realize that Sanchez was not a good man. When he said so to his mother, she smacked him, and he never again mentioned it. When he complained to his grandmother, she told him that Sanchez gave them enough money so they did not have to worry about food, that he should shut up and eat while there was a chance. One night, after Sanchez beat his mother more severely than was by now usual, Jaime decided to follow him. The next morning he was ready, even before Grandma got up. He hid on the street outside the house, behind a tree that gave enough cover to a scrawny small boy like him. The place was dirty like everywhere else, but Jaime was used to the trash and the stink of rotting food and excrement. Chicken picked around his feet, a few goats scrambled for anything edible. The day turned sunny and hot and humid, but Jaime waited patiently. His friends came by looking for him, but he remained in his hiding spot. They walked on, whistling, when he did not come out to play. It was hours before Sanchez stepped outside the gate. He stood a moment, looking up and down the street. Few people were there, neither of them greeted him. He did not speak to them either. When he walked past, they turned away. Sanchez walked with his head high, as if the street belonged to him, and maybe, just maybe, it did. Carefully, Jaime scrambled out to the asphalt. His neighbors wanted to call to him, but when they saw his determination, their glances followed the boy's and they noted Sanchez's back disappearing down the street. They sensed the boy's purpose and they kept going after their own business. They knew a boy on a mission when they saw one. Sanchez walked along, kicking the odd pebble after a dog by the wayside. One unfortunate pup on 3 legs could not scramble out of his way fast enough. Jaime shuddered at the sad whine when it was kicked to the curb by Sanchez's big feet in their hefty boots. Sanchez did not look back. The boy skipped from side to side, trying to hide behind trees and bushes, piles of rubbish and debris. The sun hung high in the sky, making the boy sweat. The man's dirty t-shirt clung to his back, a dark sweat stain like a tea darkening the skimpy cotton material. And still he walked on. From the main road, Sanchez turned towards the harbour, and for a moment Jaime lost sight of him. When he caught up to the corner where he had last seen the man, He was panting up some stone steps. Jaime looked around. He had never been here to this part of town. He had heard about it, and he knew that this section was poorer than even his own. Here, none of the kids wore shoes, and they slept 2 and 3 to a hammock. Most of the girls and young women sold themselves to the men in the bars up ahead, and this was where Sanchez was headed. Jaime stopped when he saw the men enter one of the doors of a place that was open 24/7. At any time of day or night, girls were working here, making the men drink and seeing to their pleasure. Jaime was not sure what this meant exactly, but he had a feeling that there was moaning and headboard bashing involved, like when Sanchez visited his mother. "Hola, niño, what are you doing here? Aren't you a little young for this kind of place?" Jaime had not noticed the young woman come up behind him. She smiled, pointing towards the door of the bar with her head. Her lips were a bright shade of red, her white top spotless and tight over a trim body. Her skirt was short enough so Jaime could see her black panties. At least she wore panties. Miguel had told him that not all the girls in these places did. "You coming in or what?" She stepped past him, almost reaching the doorway before he found his voice. "Do you know Sanchez?" he threw at her. The girl stopped. "Who wants to know?" An eyebrow raised, she inspected him suspiciously. "Me, and you are—" "Jaime." She pulled a face, winked at him. "So, Jaime, why do you want to know about Sanchez?" "Because—" What could he have said? That Sanchez was his new daddy? For a daddy he knew fairly little about him. That Sanchez was his mother's new friend? Man? He did not know what to say, so he just left off. "You want to come and meet him? I guess he's in here." The girl touched the handle but did not pull the screen door open. Jaime shook his head. "Nope, just wondered what he was doing here." The girl nodded. "You are Speta's boy." When Jaime did not reply, she seized him up once more. "How old are you?" "I'm 6. "Should you not be at school?" "I will start after the summer." "You don't want to mess with Sanchez. He's keen on your mom right now. He wants her to work here and make money for him." After a moment's hesitation, she continued, "He owns the girls in this place." Jaime did not understand. How could Sanchez own anybody? The girl opened the door to the bar, looked around, then shouted, "Sanchez, you got a visitor!" Jaime turned and ran. He could hear her shrill laughter hollering after him. He could hear Sanchez's voice. He kept running till he was back at home and hiding behind his grandmother. The next time Sanchez came to the house, he stopped to look at Jaime. He crinkled his face, watching him through alcohol-clouded eyes. "So, you like girls?" Jaime stood as tall as he could. "Cat caught your tongue, pendejo. That was you the other day, no? So, you came to check out my merchandise, or what?" Too many questions, and Jaime could not figure out what to say. He swallowed hard and dry, his throat itching. No sound escaped. At that moment he believed that he would never speak again. Sweat pooled around his neck and tickled his skin as it dripped down. He expected a smack or a kick, but no punishment came. Sanchez burped, shook his head back, and laughed like a crazy man. Jaime had neither moved nor flinched. He stood stiffly, his gaze unwavering. His grandmother was watching from the washing line, keeping an eye out for the safety of the boy. But she should not have bothered, as Sanchez simply turned and walked to Elzbieta's room. "Where's my bitch?" he hollered. Elzbieta came running from the neighbor's yard, shut the door behind her. "I am here." Jaime stood and kept looking at the closed door to his mother's room. Eventually his breathing returned to normal, his pulse slowed, and the tenseness of his body diminished. When Grandma laid a kind hand on his shoulder, he shuddered. "Don't be scared, mijo. This man is wicked and evil, but I know you could outrun him any day." Her eyes twinkled, and he smiled. One morning not long after, his mother went to fetch some water for Sanchez to drink. He stood in the doorway of her room, sweaty and fat and disgusting, watching as she bent over the well. "Bitch, you're growing fat!" The word sharp as a knife, cutting Elzbieta in the back. She stood up and was about to find words to throw at Sanchez when his eyes shot open wide. He took one long look at her, saw the way she moved, and noticed the small protrusion of her belly. "Get rid of it! You're no good to me like this." He did not wait for the water, did not wait for the words that formed in her head. Sanchez did not show his face any more after that. Elzbieta's stomach grew. Grandmother told Jaime that she was carrying a baby under her heart, and that one day he would have a little brother or sister, if God chose to bless them that way. When Jaime was out and about or simply not looking, the women would exchange worried looks and even more worried words. One more mouth to feed. Without the money coming in from Sanchez, what could they do? What would happen to them? As bad as Sanchez was as a man, he knew a good business opportunity when he saw one. With her pregnancy, he could no longer use Elzbieta for his own pleasures, and she was no good for his bordello, as her good figure would be ruined forever now. She had been lucky after the first little bastard that popped, but she would not be so lucky after the second. On the other hand, there were other options. So one day, he sent the young woman that had met Jaime at the door to his bar. His mother was crying when she allowed for him to walk away, a small parcel of clothes under one arm, his other hand holding on to the young woman's. In her fist she held a wad of $10 bills. Elzbieta had sold her son. I think I'll stop here for today. The next section will carry on from here. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you come back. Thanks and see you soon. Bye.